All right, welcome back, everyone. It is now 8:07. I've been informed that the jury has reached a verdict. I do not know what that verdict is. The court officers were informed by the foreperson that they have reached a verdict, and no further questions were asked of them. So we will bring the jury in. I will ask the foreperson to send the verdict forms up to me to review them. Sometimes they forget to sign them. Make sure that they've been signed and dated. If they have been completed, I'll return those to our foreperson, who's juror number 3, and have him present the verdicts. Now, folks, I just want to prepare everybody to receive a verdict. It really is an overwhelming and awesome thing. These folks are just 12 ordinary citizens from our community who have paid a lot of attention this week over the evidence that's been presented in this case, and they've done their best to reach a fair and just verdict. And one side or the other very well may be disappointed in this. Maybe both sides could end up being disappointed in it. But it's essential that everybody in the courtroom remain calm and not have any outward displays of approval or disapproval of the verdicts. We need to respect this jury, whatever the decisions are. And then we will adjourn court soon thereafter, and then you can let your motions out. But I'd ask while court's in session, particularly when the jury's in here, that you have no outward displays. And the only reason I tell you that is because you really have to prepare yourself for it. You have to consciously make yourself not to react, because this is an important decision for Mr. Davis, Mr. Jordan, and his family, as well as the family of Mr. Freeman. And so you just have to prepare yourself to be stoic and not react. So is the state ready to receive the verdict?
State's ready.
Ms. Mathis, is Mr. Davis ready to receive the verdict?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Robinette, is Mr. Jordan ready to receive the verdict?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Officer Cody, will you please bring our jury? All right, everyone, you may be seated. This is State Way to Call jury. Ms. Mathis, you way to call?
Wait, Your Honor.
Mr. Robinette?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, welcome back, folks. Juror number 3, I understand you're our foreperson, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Has the jury reached a unanimous verdict as to all 3 counts as to both defendants?
Yes, sir.
Would you please hand the book to Officer Thompson? I want to review just that our verdict forms have in fact been completed. Once I've determined that, I'll return those to you for publication. Let the record reflect that the court sees that all 6 verdict forms have been completed. For our foreperson's information, I am now putting the verdict forms together based upon count rather than by defendant. So when I return these to you, Mr. Foreperson, I'm going to have you publish the findings with each defendant on each separate count. So I'm going to keep the instructions together and put the verdict forms in the back of the booklet in order. So, Mr. Thompson, would you please return this to our foreperson? And Mr. Foreperson, I'd ask you to please stand. Mr. Davis, if you please stand and face the jury. And Mr. Jordan, if you stand and face as well. And Mr. Foreperson, if you turn to the back of the booklet, you will see the verdict forms. The first count have been paper clipped together. Would you please turn to the first count? And I want you to publish the jury's findings, starting with Mr. Davis's count. I want you to read his name, then I want you to read the sentence, "We the jury," and then announce your findings.
Sorry, could you?
Yes, so start with verdict form 1, read the name of the defendant first. It'd be Deondre Davis, then the sentence, "We the jury," and then announce your findings.
Yes, sir. Verdict form 1, Deondre Davis. We the jury find the defendant Deondre Davis guilty of first-degree murder.
Thank you, sir. Would you turn to the verdict form for Mr. Jordan as to the first count and announce the name and findings?
Rashan Jordan. We the jury find the defendant Rashan Jordan guilty of first-degree murder.
Thank you, sir. If you would now turn to the second count, beginning with Mr. Davis, announce his name, and then announce your findings.
Deondre Davis, we, the jury, find the defendant Deondre Davis guilty of felony murder.
Thank you, sir. Would you turn to the verdict form for count 2 for Mr. Jordan?
Rashan Jordan, we, the jury, find the defendant Rashan Jordan guilty of first-degree murder.
Thank you, sir. If now you would turn to the verdict form 3 for count 3 for Mr. Davis, announce his name and findings, please.
Deondre Davis, we, the jury, find the defendant Deondre Davis guilty of aggravated child abuse.
And lastly, if you turn to count number 3 for Mr. Jordan.
Rashan Jordan, we, the jury, find the defendant Rashan Jordan guilty of aggravated child abuse.
Thank you, sir. You can have a seat. Mr. Davis, Mr. Jordan, you can have seats as well. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if that is your individual verdict as to each count, as to each defendant, please signify by raising your right hand at this time. All right. Let the record reflect the court does see all 12 hands. Is either side wishing any further polling?
No, sir.
Ms. Mathis?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. All right, so ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you heard the announcement from our foreperson, who's juror number 1, and I'm going to go through and ask you a question. I'm going to start with juror number 1, WM, your initials. Is that your verdict as to each count, as to each defendant?
Yes.
And juror number 2, initials KB, is that your verdict as to each defendant and each count?
Yes.
Mr. Foreperson, is that your verdict as to each defendant and each count?
Yes.
And juror number 4, RR, is that your verdict as to each defendant, as to each count? And juror number 5, SF, is that your verdict as to each defendant and each count?
Yes.
Juror number 6, MA, is that your individual verdict as to each defendant and each count?
Yes.
Juror now number 12, AG, is that your verdict as to each defendant, as to each count?
Yes.
Juror number 11, RR, is that your verdict as to each defendant and each count?
Yes.
Juror number 10, CP, is that your verdict as to each defendant and each count?
Yes.
Juror number 9, JO, is that your verdict as to each defendant and each count?
Yes.
Juror number 8, SB or SS, is that your verdict as to each defendant and each count?
Yes.
And now juror number 7, which is MD, is that your verdict as to each defendant as to each count?
Yes.
All right, that can reflect the court finds that the polling shows this is a unanimous verdict, and the court does accept that verdict. I also exercise my role as a 13th juror and find that the weight of the evidence does support the jury's verdicts. So ladies and gentlemen, that will conclude your verdict or your case, service in this case, as well as this week. I know you're all ready to get out of here. I do need to give you some instructions for next week, and I'd like to give you a certificate of appreciation and thank you for your service. So if you don't mind waiting for me one last time in the jury room, at this time you are discharged with the thanks to the court. Please go with the officers. All right. I ask Mr. Davis and Mr. Jordan remain standing. Everybody else should have a seat. Deondre Davis and docket number 121660 after being tried by jury peers are found guilty of first-degree murder. The court does enter that finding. Count number 2 is felony murder, which is also first-degree murder. That will merge into count number 1. And count number 3, guilty of aggravated child abuse. That's a Class A finding. The court does enter that as well. Rashan Jordan, after being tried by jury peers in docket number 121661, count 1. The jury is found to be guilty of first-degree murder. The court does enter that finding. As to count 2, first-degree felony murder, the court does enter that finding. That will merge into count 1. And lastly, the third count, Mr. Jordan, aggravated child abuse. That's Class A felony. The court does enter that finding as well. So, as I said, a 13th juror finds that the way the evidence supports those verdicts. You can have a seat now, gentlemen. All right, because the defendants have been found guilty of first-degree murder, this is an automatic life sentence. In the state of Tennessee, a life sentence for a juvenile is not the same as a life sentence for an adult. It is now somewhere between 25 and 36 years. Because there is no other sentence for that, the court will present or enter that judgment today. I would suggest we do victim impact when we come back for the child abuse. Is that acceptable to the family?
Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. Davis, do you please stand up at this time and enter your judgment? You will have an opportunity to address the court before we enter judgment on aggravated child abuse. Deondre Davis, after being tried by jury peers and found guilty of first-degree murder in count 1 and felony murder in count 2, the court now merges those offenses, and I order you to serve life in prison in the state of Tennessee Department of Corrections. Because because you are a juvenile, the life sentence is a shorter period of time. It's estimated to be 25 to 36 years. We will discuss that further when we come back for sentencing on count 3. You can have a seat, sir. Mr. Jordan, would you please stand? Rashan Jordan, after being tried by your jury of your peers and found guilty of first-degree murder and felony murder, those merged into a single first-degree murder conviction. The court does sentence you to serve life in the Tennessee Department of Corrections. Again, as a juvenile, that's a shorter sentence than an adult life sentence. We will discuss that when we come back for sentencing in count 3. You can have a seat as well, sir. So the court needs to refer both defendants for a pre-sentence investigation report to be conducted, and we will use that in the sentencing. Today is the 31st of March. I would suggest Thursday, the 18th of May for sentencing.
Good? Mr. Let's go to the state. What day is it again?
That's a Thursday, May 18th. Ms. Mathis?
That would be fine.
Very well. We will schedule these for sentencing on May 18th. If there's nothing further to come before the court will stand adjourned until 9 o'clock Monday morning. Ms. Mathis?
Well, Your Honor, I may have a different understanding of the Booker opinion, but my reading of that opinion is that a defendant is now going to be entitled to a sentencing hearing before the judge to establish the additional factors before imposing an automatic life sentence under the law.
My understanding is it's still an automatic life sentence, but what's changed is what that means for a juvenile. Now, we can revisit it when it comes time to sentencing on count 3, but there is no other sentence for first-degree murder. It's an automatic life sentence. It's just, what does that mean? And it's really out of the court's hand. I think all I can do is sentence him to life in prison. So I'll be glad to listen to further argument when we come back May 18th, but I'm pretty sure that's the only sentence available.
Sure, Your Honor.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, folks. Court stands adjourned.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Ms. Carroll. Thank you, Jennifer.